Welcome back, warrior. So I think my husband fixed the treadmill. So that's nice. He had found this. It's called treadmill belt lubricant. That's amazing, right? So now I don't have to walk at an 8 incline, although it might have been being good for me. Anyway, okay, we're reading Genesis chapter 47. And we also have to read 48, 49, and 50 today because we have like 6 chapters of Exodus to cover this week. And so, we're going to be like really locked in. Okay, we remember that Joseph then... Okay, so Genesis chapter 47. Actually, let's read just the chapter heading. The Israelites settle in Goshen. Jacob blesses Pharaoh. Joseph sells grain to the Egyptians. Pharaoh receives the Egyptians' cattle and lands. Jacob desires to be buried with his fathers in Canaan. Okay, so a lot of stuff happening here. Here we go. Oh, so we remember that Joseph had coached his family on what to say in the last chapter, because he knows that they're about to be introduced to Pharaoh. And so they are not supposed to say they're sheep herders, because that's bad news. But they are supposed to say that they are cattle, what is it? That they raise cattle, right? It's kind of like on your resume. Don't write that you do customer service, but talk about how you are in charge of creating customer experiences and how you give them, you make sure your customers have the best experience possible with the business or the brand, right? And so it's totally different, right? Because it's not the same. I just do customer service, right? I love helping people with their resumes, and that's the kind of stuff that I make sure to say. It's like, well, yeah, you were like a cashier at this place, right? But it's like, that's not all you did. Tell me all the other things that you did besides that. And then we can say that you did different things, but you don't say the one thing that is like so boring to say, right? So anyway, it's like one of those things. So I get it. You gotta say what they want to hear, right? Focus on the things that other people want to hear about your experience instead of downplaying what it is that you do or have done in the past. And that's something that I think we all struggle with, because it's so known to us that we're just like, oh yeah, but we're just, right? Like we always say, oh, we're just this or we're just that, right? And it's like, don't downplay yourself, especially when you're trying to get a job. You got to play up your skills. You got to play up all your experience so that other people will be like, this person's amazing and they've done so many things, which is true. But we just are always like, Satan convinces us that we are just like small and little and how dare we and who are we to try and get paid more and things like that. So anyway, this is our invitation or our reminder to play big and to talk about all the things that we do, and don't say just, okay? All right, here we go. So Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen, which is totally fine because that's what Pharaoh told him to do, right? And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. So he took his brothers. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, what is your occupation, right? Because it's like totally valid, right? And they said unto Pharaoh, thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. Oh, great. They said moreover unto Pharaoh, for to sojourn in the land are we come, for thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Now, I think that they were supposed to say something about cattle instead of shepherds, but we'll see what happens. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell in the land of Goshen. Let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. Okay, so I think that they did say something about cattle, right? I think maybe in the translation it kind of got lost because we know that they weren't supposed to say that. Anyway, and Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their families. Okay, so we remember that Joseph had coached his brothers, on what they were supposed to say. Also, I'm sorry about this light. She wants to play there. So I don't want to take away the light. It's kind of dark down here right now, so it's not quite. The sun hasn't quite come all the way up yet. Okay. It could also show the Egyptians. Sorry, hold on. Let's read right here. If they presented it right, then Pharaoh would give them the proper land that they needed, which was the land that was good for their flocks and herds. It could also show the Egyptians that they had the ability to provide for themselves. Pharaoh gave Jacob's family the land of Goshen. Goshen was the eastern part of the Nile, and it was a fruitful place, at least when there was no famine, which was good for these shepherds. For 400 years later, the Hebrews or Israelites will still live in Goshen and will have grown and increased so that Pharaoh will be threatened by their growing population, right? Because of Moses. Remember, the time of Moses is coming later on. Joseph then brought his father to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Then Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and Joseph nourished his father and his brethren. And so now the house of Jacob was safely placed in Egypt, rather than perishing in the land of Canaan. And hence the Lord preserved the house of Israel through Joseph's great faithfulness. Love that. Okay, verse 13. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in the presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle, if money fail. Okay, so I don't know what that money fail means, but it sounds like, it didn't matter how much money you had, you need to provide something else, right? And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses or for flocks, and for the cattle of the herds and for the donkeys, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. Okay, so now, aside from the money that Egypt was taking, now they were getting cattle and flocks and herds and stuff. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. Okay, so now Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. So imagine Pharaoh just being like, dude, we own all the things, like he was just like living it up, loving life, right? And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food of your little ones. So this is so wise. Like, this is like ultimate. I think like everybody wishes that they could be as smart as Joseph here. And that this is kind of like what every government would love, right? Is just like, we just want to own all the things and we want the people to work for us, right? And like, while that's awesome for the government, it's not really awesome for the people, because they are no longer going to be free people, right? These people have to rent land from like the government, from their country, in order to live there. And instead of like each person having their own land, I mean, I think it's this, I guess it's similar to our taxes and stuff. But currently, like, our government doesn't own our land per se, right? I mean, maybe, and we just kind of think we own it or whatever, but you know what I'm saying, right? And anyway, and then they make it so that it's like, oh, they're saving their lives, right? And it's like, but they were like forced to like grow seed in exchange for being able to live there, kind of thing. And so it says, and they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. So now, not only is Pharaoh getting all of people's lands, they are now getting people's lands, and they're being the servants of Pharaoh. So yeah, isn't that crazy? And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. Okay, so just a little bit more of explanation here, because I might not be explaining it right. The famine continued and was very sore. So Joseph had overseen storing the food, and now he was the overseeing selling the food to the citizens of Egypt. Soon the people began to run out of money. See, this is where I was like, remember back in the day, I was like, or back a couple videos, I should say. I was like, they're going to have enough money for all of this for 7 years. I don't think that they did, right? And like, maybe some people saved their money and figured this out, but for the most part, I don't think that they did, right? So soon the people began to run out of money. Imagine how their livelihoods were impacted if they were unable to grow food or have thriving herds. Soon they could not pay for the food that was stored, and Joseph did not want them to starve. So he came up with another solution, that the people could sell their animals in exchange for food. Then the next year they were out of money and animals, and all they had left were their bodies and their land. Therefore Joseph allowed them to continue to work as they had previously done, but now all the land was Pharaoh's. So they would pay Pharaoh 20% of their harvest now each year, and people were grateful for this solution. Isn't that crazy? So, meanwhile, the house of Israel was in Goshen, and they grew and multiplied exceedingly. Israel / Jacob lived there for 17 years and began to plan for his death. Okay. So verse 27, and Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die, and he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me unto Egypt, or out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. Okay. So he told his family he wanted them to carry his body out of Egypt and bury him in the family's burying place. He wanted to be buried at the same place that his father Isaac and grandfather Abraham were buried, which was in a cave of Machpelah or the cave of the patriarchs. Isn't that kind of cool that they were all in the same cave? Okay, so that is it for 47, and we will read the Read It, Live It in the next one because it's both combined. So until in chapter 48, because this is 47. So until Genesis chapter 48, stay strong, warrior.